Last time we had an industrial revolution, there was like revolution and world wars. Do you think we'll see that this time?
Again, no one knows for sure. I'm not confident on this answer, but my instinct is the world is so much richer now than it was at the time of the Industrial Revolution that we can actually absorb more change faster than we could before. There's a lot that's not about money of job. There's meaning, there's belonging, there's sense of community. I think we're already, unfortunately, in society in a pretty bad place there. I'm not sure how much worse it can get. I'm sure it can, but I have been pleasantly surprised on the ability of people to pretty quickly adapt to big changes. Like COVID was an interesting example to me of this, where the world kind of stopped all at once. And the world was like very different from one week to the next. And I was very worried about how society was going to be able to adapt to that world. And it obviously didn't go perfectly. But on the whole, I was like, all right, this is one point in favor of societal resilience, and people find, new kind of ways to live their lives very quickly. I don't think AI will be nearly that abrupt.
So what will be the downside? I can see the upsides for sure.
Yeah.
Efficiency, medical diagnosis seems like it's going to be much more accurate, fewer lawyers. Thank you very much for that. But what are the downsides that you worry about?
I think this is just like kind of how I'm wired. I always worry the most about the unknown unknowns. If it's a downside that we can really be confident about and think about, we talked about one earlier, which is these models are getting very good at bio, and they could help us design biological weapons, engineer like another COVID-style pandemic. I worry about that, but because we worry about it, I think we and many other people in the industry are thinking hard about how to mitigate that. The unknown unknowns where, okay, there's a societal scale effect from a lot of people talking the same model at the same time. This is like a silly example, but it's one that struck me recently. LLMs like ours and our language model and others have a kind of certain style to them. They talk in a certain rhythm and they have a little bit unusual diction, and maybe they overuse em dashes and whatever. And I noticed recently that real people have picked that up. And it was an example for me of man, you have enough people talking to the same language model, and it actually does cause a change in societal scale behavior.
Yes.
And, did I think that ChatGPT was going to make people use way more em dashes in real life? Certainly not. It's not a big deal, but it's an example of where there can be these unknown unknowns of this is a brave new world.
So you're saying, I think correctly and succinctly, that technology changes human behavior, of course, and changes our assumptions about the world and each other and all that. And a lot of this you can't predict, but considering that we know that, why shouldn't the internal moral framework of the technology be totally transparent? We prefer this to that. This is obviously a religion. I don't think you'll agree to call it that. It's very clearly a religion to me. That's not an attack.
I actually would love, I don't take that as an attack, but I would love to hear what you mean by that.
Well, it's something that we assume is more powerful than people, and to which we look for guidance. You're already seeing that on display. What's the right decision? I ask that question of whom? My closest friends, my wife, and God. And this is a technology that provides a more certain answer than any person can provide. So it's a religion. And the beauty of religions is they have a catechism that is transparent. I know what the religion stands for. Here's what it's for, here's what it's against. But in this case, I pressed, and I wasn't attacking you, sincerely, I was not attacking you, but I was trying to get to the heart of it. The beauty of a religion is it admits it's a religion, and it tells you what it stands for. The unsettling part of this technology, not just your company, but others, is that I don't know what it stands for, but it does stand for something. And unless it admits that and tells us what it stands for, then it guides us in a kind of stealthy way toward a conclusion we might not even know we're reaching. Do you see what I'm saying? So why not just throw it open and say, ChatGPT is for this, we're for suicide for the terminally ill, but not for kids or whatever. Why not just tell us?
The reason we write this long model spec, and the reason we keep expanding it over time, is so that you can see, here is how we intend for the model to behave. What used to happen before we had this is people would fairly say, I don't know what the model's even trying to do, and I don't know if this is a bug or the intended behavior.
Right.
Tell me what this long, long document of tell me how you're going to when you're going to do this and when you're going to show me this and when you're going to say you won't do that. The reason we try to write this all out is I think people do need to know.
And so is there a place you can go to find out a hard answer to what your preferences as a company are, preferences that are being transmitted in a not entirely straightforward way to the globe? Like, where can you find out what the company stands for, what it prefers?
I mean, our model spec is the answer to that. Now, I think we will have to make it increasingly more detailed over time as people use this in different countries. There's different laws, whatever else. It will not work the same way for every user everywhere. I expect that document to get very long and very complicated, right. But that's why we have it.
Let me ask you one last question, and maybe you can allay this fear, that the power of the technology will make it difficult, impossible for anyone to discern the difference between reality and fantasy. This is a famous concern, but that because it is so skilled at mimicking people and their speech and their images, that it will require some way to verify that you are who you say you are, and that will, by definition, require biometrics, which will, by definition, eliminate privacy for every person in the world.
I don't think we need to or should require biometrics to use the technology. I think you should just be able to use ChatGPT from any computer.
Yeah, well, I strongly agree. But then at a certain point, when images or sounds that mimic a person, it just becomes too easy to empty your checking account with that. So what do you do about that?
A few thoughts there. One, I think we are rapidly heading to a world where people understand that if you get a phone call from someone that sounds like your kid or your parent, or if you see an image that looks real, you have to really have some way to verify that you're not being scammed. And this is not this is no longer a theoretical concern. You hear all these reports.
At all?
Yeah. People are smart. Society is resilient. I think people are quickly understanding that this is now a thing that bad actors are using. And people are understanding that you got to verify in different ways. I suspect that in addition to things like family members having code words they use in crisis situations, we'll see things like when a president of a country has to issue an urgent message, they cryptographically sign it or otherwise somehow guarantee its authenticity. So you don't have generated videos of Trump saying, I've just done this or that. And I think people are learning quickly that this is a new thing that bad guys are doing with the technology they have to contend with. And I think that is most of the solution, which is people will by default not trust convincing looking media, and we will build new mechanisms to verify authenticity of communication.
But those will have to be biometric.
No, not at all. I mean, if the president of the U.S. has a
I understand that, but on the average day, you're not sort of waiting for the president to announce a war. You're trying to do e-commerce, and how could you do?
Well, I think with your family, you'll have a code word that you change periodically, and if you're communicating with each other and you get a call, you ask what the code word is. But that's very different than a biometric.
So you don't envision, to board a plane, commercial flight, biometrics are part of the process now. You don't see that as becoming society-wide mandatory very soon along?
I really hope it doesn't become mandatory. I think there are versions of privacy-preserving biometrics that I like much more than collecting a lot of personal digital information on someone. But I don't think biometrics should be mandatory. I don't think you should have to provide biometrics to get on an airplane, for example.
What about for banking?
I don't think you should have to for banking. I might prefer to. I might prefer a fingerprint scan to access my Bitcoin wallet than giving all my information to a bank, but that should be a decision for me.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Sam Altman.
Thank you.
So it turns out that YouTube is suppressing this show. On one level, that's not surprising. That's what they do. But on another level, it's shocking. With everything that's going on in the world right now, all the change taking place in our economy and our politics, with the wars we're on the cusp of fighting right now, Google has decided you should have less information rather than more. And that is totally wrong. It's immoral. What can you do about it? Well, We could whine about it. That's a waste of time. We're not in charge of Google. Or we could find a way around it, a way that you could actually get information that is true, not intentionally deceptive. The way to do that on YouTube, we think, is to subscribe to our channel. Subscribe. Hit the little bell icon to be notified when we upload and share this video. That way you'll have a much higher chance of hearing actual news and information. So we hope that you'll do that.